Hello and welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave and this is podcast 30. On this episode, I welcomed Jason Christoff onto the podcast and we talked about psychological manipulation, mind control, brainwashing, behavioral modification, propaganda, and many other topics associated with basically coercing humans into doing things that they don't really want to do, like injecting themselves with poisons, eating foods that make them fat and obese, and many other different topics that are all linked together. And this conversation was very interesting because Jason Christoff runs an international psychological reprogramming institute, and he shares many of his tactics and methods in which to break programming and psychological manipulation and to be able to see through the propaganda. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix because there's so many levels and layers to it, Today I've got an awesome guest for you and his name is Jason Christoff. He runs an international psychological reprogramming institute where he educates on the topics of mind control, behavior modification, psychological manipulation, propaganda. He's also into self-sabotage and brainwashing. His information allows each graduate to review their own internal programming, which may be holding them back from expressing their full potential in life. And if a graduate discovers that they are carrying self-destructive, and self-abusive behaviors in their subconscious mind pathway, reprogramming options are explained and provided. With this knowledge, graduates of Jason's program have the capability to review the subconscious behaviors of their patients, clients, etc., and reprogram in a similar fashion. Jason, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast, and I'm happy to have you here. And before we start, I just want to say thank you because you're the guy that actually got me into podcasting. We had met at Acapulco 2022. And I graciously self-invited myself on your podcast. You graciously said yes and basically opened the door to this new world to me, which is very, very exciting. So thanks again for being here and thanks for, having me on your show 2.5 years ago.
It was whatever is meant to happen happens for sure, Todd. I was very impressed with your talk at Acapulco and we struck up a good conversation. So, yeah, you did invite yourself onto the podcast, but it turned out really good. People loved that podcast.
Yeah. I had messages from people after as well telling me it was a great show that we did together. And, Jason, before we get into the main stuff we're going to talk about today, can you tell people a little bit about yourself, how you actually got into this, what were the drivers, what put you on this path? Because I realize even for myself that there's always a backstory. There's always a moment or moments that happen to people that push them down this line of self-development, teaching, inspiring people, being a truther, etc., etc. So what was that moment or moments that led you down to this path?
I think there was a lot of spiritual push that drove me down this path. I mean, I graduated McGill University in 1994, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for anybody, and I opened my first fitness club 6 months after graduating from, it was Canada's top university. I still think it's Canada's top university today. And what I found out about myself is I had the self-sabotaging behaviors that I coach on today, but I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know where they came from. And when you have these, they're like mind viruses, and they're put into your subconscious purposely by the government and by the media. And you're not going to really know you have them until you get triggered. And the trigger for me was, okay, I'm a young man. In the first 30 days of business, I made $26,000 in profit for myself. And that was the trigger. What are you supposed to do? What are the programs in regards to having, thousands of dollars in your pocket? Well, it was cocaine and partying and drinking, fast cars, fast motorcycles, fraternizing with both males and females they shouldn't be fraternizing with. And these programs are there to make sure you never accomplish your true potential. You never fulfill your true potential. And I really knocked myself down using the money as the ultimate weapon to really buy and engage in all this self-destructive behavior. And then I started to come out of it. I started to read a little bit. I wanted to be healthier. I was in a lot of pain mentally, physically. I had suicidal ideation. I wasn't enjoying my life. So I started reading these books by Paul Chek. He's #1 holistic health practitioner in the world. It was very interesting to the point where I sort of was in so much pain I couldn't walk. At 29 years old, I really had a hard time even climbing the stairs at my own fitness facility, which was quite ironic. And I hired a head coach, a leading coach from the Chek Institute that came down and did what all these Chek Institute practitioners do, is know that I was infected with these ideas. I didn't know. I was under mind control. I was brainwashed. I was propagandized, and that means I was going to be a very dangerous client because I thought I was making up all these decisions on my own. I was doing the cocaine because I liked it. I was drinking because I liked it. But she handled me with kid gloves, and basically I had that pain which inhibited me from walking properly for 20 years, maybe more. It's just I remember 2 decades, and she took it away in 2 weeks. So I said, how can I learn how to be such a great healer? And then she got me on to going to the Chek Institute, taking some courses at the Chek Institute. And then I became a practitioner myself, coaching people. And then I found out they were terrified to get in shape. There's no way they wanted to lose their wine or lose their coffee or stop watching Netflix. And so I phoned the Chek Institute and I said, look, people are paying me thousands of dollars. Thank you for the certification. This is unbelievable. I'm getting healthy myself, but my clients are really afraid to be in shape. What's going on? And like, well, they have the same mind control that you had when you were destroying and beating yourself up. And I said, well, is there anything specific I can read on this mind control? Because I know my coach helped me understand a bit, but I said, is there something deeper? And so I started getting really deep into it. And then I started using mind control on my clients to help them get in better shape and be more comfortable with being their best selves and quitting their addictions. It's the only thing that worked. I got so busy, I had to sort of quit basically at the gym, all my clients fired me because they didn't need me anymore. So I started working online, doing the same thing. I got so busy, I had to open up a school to teach other coaches. And it's gone full circle now because I'm going to be on Paul Chek's podcast in a month and a half. So it's gone full circle. My life's really exploded skyward. I've been lecturing around the world on mind control and brainwashing. I'm speaking at the Japanese Parliament in September 26th. I spoke at the Romanian Palace of the Parliament on mind control. I think it was this October that just passed. I spoke at the European Union. I spoke at CPAC when Donald Trump was speaking there, but I was in a what's called a breakout room. I didn't speak at the CPAC event, and I actually spoke at the U.S. Senate in the Kennedy Caucus Room on brainwashing and mind control during COVID to Senator Ron Johnson. So what started off as a small chain of fitness clubs is now being sold, and I'm doing this full time and traveling around the world. And I believe this is my true path, and I believe the healing of this education is some of the most powerful in the world.
Thanks for that, Jason. And from my own journey and from talking to other people that do public speaking, teaching, into healing, we all seem to have had a similar path where I call it my refinement period, but you call it the dark night of the soul. It's basically the same thing. And it seems like all of us have had that low that was so low that we've had suicidal thoughts, or we just thought like it's never going to finish, and it kind of like breaks you. And it's similar to like how, like when they did the MK Ultra mind control programs, they broke the human being. And it feels like if the things that have happened to me and to you and to others I've spoken to have literally just broken us to the point where like that personality just dies. And then there's like something else, like it's hard to explain with words, but it's like there's some energy or some being or some essence that comes into your consciousness and comes into your energetic body that sort of like guides you on this path where, like, for me, I realized that you just have to surrender 100% and not worry about money, not worry about where the next podcast will come from, not worry about the next client, not worry about, where you're going to live, where things just seem to happen serendipitously to guide you in the path where you're supposed to go. Would you say that is similar to how you've had it as well?
Well, for me, I was always worried about where the next meal was coming from. And I was doing really well in business, and I still do really well in business. It was one of my programs. But yeah, I broke myself really hard. I had the dark decade of the soul. It wasn't the dark night of the soul. Between the drugs, the cocaine, the alcohol, the steroids, and just wasting time, wasting potential, wasting money. And it wasn't about hitting rock bottom. I hit rock bottom and was afraid to be anything but my worst, because you get a lot of instant cheers from the crowd when you're destroying your own potential. They sort of want you to fail, and they'll drink with you at the bar, sniff cocaine in the bathrooms, and they're just sort of, they don't want you to leave. They don't want you to rise up. They don't want you to become better than them and leave the herd and have a different life. So I had to trade all that in. I had to trade in the instant gratification of the group and leave the group behind. And that's the dark night of the soul, because when you leave your peer group and your support group and your friends and you try to build another life, you're going to build it alone. And I built it alone. I crawled out of my addictions. There was no one there really to support me at the time. It was very difficult, very lonely, very depressing. But even though it was depressing, I knew that working towards some better version of myself was going to have its rewards at the end. So it's not the cue. It's not about trusting the plan, but I did trust that we're going to get there. We're going to have a better life. There has to be a reward for living clean, becoming moral, becoming ethical, treating your body well, treating others well, even spending money wisely and honoring nature and honoring the earth, honoring food, honoring yourself. There had to be a reward, and there was, but it did take a long time, a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of pain to get there.
Yeah, I totally concur. And I realize that for men, we seem to have that process. In antiquity, they call it the hero's journey. And I've certainly had a good few years, almost going a decade, where I was having the dark night of the soul slash refinement period. And so I completely understand where you're coming from. So you are a self-sabotage coach. So if we were to define exactly what self-sabotage is, because is it just more of just like destroying yourself, or is it like a technical term that how you've been trained to describe what really is self-sabotage?
Well, it's basically any repetitive cycle that gives you negative results in your life that you can't break away from. And it's confusing. That's the big part. I mean, this is the unfortunate part about understanding self-sabotage. So it's not a self-sabotage coach, it's overcoming self-sabotage coach. I won't coach people on how to be a mess like myself. But these programs, these self-abusive programs that make sure you're always mediocre or below average, people will think it's natural onto them, but it's programmed into them by the media and the government. And I don't say that as a sales pitch to get cozy with my clients. This is true. And it will relieve the clients in the fact that they know there's nothing broken about them. There's nothing defective. There's nothing wrong with their behavior. If the client goes to the gym in January of 2023 and they sign up for a year membership and they never go the whole year, and they sign up and they come back to the gym in January 2024 to quit the membership that they never used, there's nothing wrong. That's programmed into them by the media and by the government. The buying home exercise equipment that they never used, programmed into them. Smoking, vaping, drinking, junk food eating, spiraling weight, increasing disease, hopelessness, helplessness. This is all programmed into them. So it relieves the people of the burden. And until I get to them and convince them that this is the truth, this is the fact, they would usually blame themselves. There's something wrong with me. I'm the only one like this. I'm the only one that can't achieve greatness. I can't even get to the gym on time. I keep gaining weight. The way mind control operates, that's how it operates. You have a person who thinks that everything that's happening to them are decisions that are organic to them. But in the realm of mind control, that's the perfect victim. Because in most cases, in 95% of cases, our behavior is determined by the repetitive content of our environment. And our environment today is screen time. And the social engineers that know all about what I'm talking about, they control the repetitive content of our screens. And by controlling the repetitive contents of our screens, they control our behavior through this invisible thing. It's called the subconscious mind pathway. And the reason your subconscious is so obsessed or so concerned with repetitive content is that your subconscious is in charge of your defenses. It's in charge of your safety and security. And a lot of those defenses are outside your control. Like, Todd, if you got cut, right? The cut will heal. You don't have a say. Your heart is beating. You don't have a say. And if there was a splinter moving really quickly toward your eye blinks. You're not even involved. Like, it's involuntary. It's just happening. Now, one of the defense mechanisms that are in that category that you don't control is your subconscious. Again, you don't know this is going on, is always looking for repetitive content. The reason it's obsessed with repetitive content is because it loves you, wants you to be safe, but it's safer in the bigger herd. You're safer in the bigger group, in the bigger wolf pack. Like, if you were on this jungle, like on the savannah in Africa, and there's a lion stalking the zebra herd, you know it's not safe on the outside. Because that could be the
Facts.
zebra that goes, yeah, you're going to see a big chomp, and then everything goes back to normal and the lion had its meal. It's safer in the middle. Your subconscious knows it's safer for your heartbeat to keep going. It's safer for the cut to heal. It's safer in the middle. So it's another invisible defense system. Where's the bigger herd? How can I get in the middle? How can I have the herd bring me into the middle so I'm the safest? The repetitive content reflects what the bigger herd is saying, thinking, or doing. That's not the only invisible process. Not only the counting of the repetitive content, but forcing you to mimic it, forcing you to adopt it, and so that you enter the herd and say, hey guys, I'm just like you. Can we be friends yet? And that is always invisibly going on. So the repetitive content of your environment determines your behavior. 93 to 97% of your behavior is formulated in this way. The average person doesn't know that. And the people who control the screens know that, plus a whole lot more. They will put the drinking imagery in, the smoking imagery, the junk food imagery. And if you don't think this is powerful stuff, in 2001, there was a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage. It was about car theft. Nicolas Cage was a retired car thief, and he had to steal 100 cars for a local hood at night, or Nicolas Cage's brother would be like murdered by the local thug. Lot of repetition on car theft. Again, average person doesn't know anything about this. With, say, you're crazy, if you were to propose that seeing repetitive car thieving could make you go steal a car when you got out of the theater, they'd say you're crazy. Now, when you're sitting in the theater, this subconscious mind pathway protection mechanism has been proven not to know the difference between real time, screen time, and imagined thought. So when you're sitting there, your subconscious is saying, I love Todd. How can I make Todd safer? What tribe are we in right now? How can I mimic the tribal customs of this tribe so that Todd can be safer? Well, it's car theft. Now, when that movie came out in Burnaby, BC, Canada, this was documented by Dr. Jerry Croth, Kroth, at Santa Clara University in California. He documented when that movie came out in 2001 in Burnaby, BC, Canada, car theft went up 70% in the first 4 days. And it went up in a lot of other places. Now, this is called social contagion, and it's because of the pathway I'm talking, this loving, defensive, I love you, let's see how to best fit in so that we survive. The people who rule us know this, so they're going to put up garbage in, garbage out, all the repetitive content. We're going to follow it. And see, it's not that this is black magic, because you could use repetitive content that's positive and people would have the same effect. It's the heart of the magician that determines the spell that's cast. And if anybody hasn't noticed, what's on the screen today, look at the Paris Olympics, it has the same effect. Look at Netflix, look at the Grammy Awards with, I don't know if that was named Stan Smith or something like this. But if you look at the entertainment, the movies, the TV shows, what's on the radio, I even listen to some of your rap songs on your videos, Todd, when you're doing the exercise videos, flexing out. But what you need to do, and what everybody needs to do, is start listening to the lyrics or the script of the movie or the TV shows, because this part of the brain that loves you and wants you to be safe, it doesn't know the difference between one song, one movie, one TV show, one billboard, one newspaper. To the subconscious, it's all information, and it will that will connect the dots with similar repetitive content over all media, over all behavior that's even live and in person. Most times your parents are the ones that put in the initial programming to smoke, to eat bad, to have a job, be an entrepreneur. They'll put in all the programming. And my parents, they were entrepreneurs. So guess what I ended up being? Entrepreneur. But they were also alcoholics and they liked junk food. And So you keep the programming that works, get rid of the one that's bad. But anybody out there, if you're having trouble with your weight, if you're smoking or vaping, smoking weed, which is this cult's this cult's favorite psychoactive drugs, if you're doing anything like this, you're doing it because of the repetitive programming. And we'll leave, before I stop, I'll tell you the most repetitive theme on purpose, and there's a reason for this, in all Hollywood film that the average person will never ever notice is a coffee cup, takeout coffee cup, clay coffee mug, coffee shop in the background, or a percolator machine or an espresso machine on the back counter of the kitchen. There's a reason for that, and it has to do with mind control and making people obey to a greater degree. But everything people are doing in the society today, whether it's coffee in the morning, working a job instead of being an entrepreneur, ordering takeout food on a Friday night that's not fit for a maggot to consume, it's trickery. They're making you do it, and you're thinking it's organic to yourself, and it's an ambush and it's a trap, and that's why it's important to learn about this info.
Okay, so question then. So is it just a matter of repetition, or is there certain like techniques? Because from what you're describing, it sounds like a plan to plant information subconsciously, because you mentioned the subconscious mind a lot. So is it just a situation of just plain repetition, just like if you listen to a song 100 times, eventually you will learn the lyrics? Or are there other slight techniques in terms of like colors, having stuff in the background, subtle things that like tones and frequencies to help push past sort of like protective mechanisms that the subconscious mind may have? Is it just plain repetition, or is it a combination of all these things?
There's many different modalities, maybe not too much to mention, but there's probably about 15 of them. But this is also why the 85% of mind control is repetition. But even if you take a natural human, get a hot tub time machine, go back in time, grab a human from 5,000 years ago, or a group of humans, only about 30% will comply without thinking about it to the repetitive content. That's a good percentage to start with, but it's certainly not in the percentage range that our social engineers would like. Poisoning the population really increases the compliance level. You're going to get way more than the standard 30%. And again, I'll tell you why, but this is also why you're going to go to the movies. The movies are not there to entertain you. They're there to entrain you and put in the repetitive content that they want you to live out. Before you go in the movie theater, they will have the canteen, and they will give you caffeine, chocolate, pop, and there's many other things that have caffeine, and they'll give you sugar and chemicals. And now if you study MK Ultra mind control, the fact that a human's poisoned really increases their compliance. There was a psychology professor recently, his name is Dave Hodges, Hodges, and he was interviewed by Sarah Westall, who's a great mind control researcher on Substack, and he reiterated what I'm talking about. Poisoning humans really increases the chances that they will mimic the ridiculous repetitive content that's purposely riddled throughout the movies. Now, the reason why is simple. Herd behavior is where all this sort of stems from. Where am I going to find safety? The repetitive content, the most repetitive content represents the herd. That's the correlation. The most repetitive content in your media represents the bigger herd. Now, easy question to answer. Do strong animals need the herd more? How about injured or poisoned animals? Animals that can't fend for themselves, dependent animals. Do they need the herd more or less compared to a strong animal? Obviously, the answer is simple. If there's an animal injured, They can't fend for themselves. They're sort of vulnerable to attack. They need the herd more. This is what the poisoning is for. Poison the humans. Any poison will do. They'll allow you to pick your poison of choice. They'll at least give you the false impression that you have enough fake freedoms. You can have Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, Coke or Pepsi. You can have, Crestor or Lipitor. You can have Budweiser or you can have Miller. You can have a chocolate glazed donut or you can have a cream filled. Pick your poison, which is a phrase in our society, right? And the poison is everywhere. And it's so normalized, the average person can't even see it. Alcohol used to be their favorite drug of choice. Caffeine is definitely now their favorite drug of choice because you get more work out of the people that are under mind control. You're going to get more work efficiency. But people, this is normalized. When you go onto an airplane, you have the screen in front of you, and all the movies on all the airplanes are the same. They're handpicked for the repetitive content agendas of the day, how they want you to act. Then they come down the aisle of the plane with the junk food, the chemicals, the poisons, the alcohol. Mind control is not a minor facet of where you live. It's the only facet of where you live. Everything that's going on today cannot occur without this much coordinated mind control, poisoning and repetitive content. Even when you get off the plane, you're going to go to your hotel room. Why? There's no organic broccoli in the mini fridge. There's nothing healthy. It's caffeine. It's junk. There's free coffee machines in the mini bar in the room. You have your Nespresso or whatever you have. Then you go down to the restaurant, more junk, more alcohol, more poison. The average person is so poisoned and so injured and so easy to be put under mind control because they have no idea what it's like to be a healthy human being. And when you're healthy, if you see the repetitive content, you're able to judge the long-term consequences of adopting the repetitive content. I've quit alcohol for a long time. It took me 2.5 years to quit alcohol. So it's like a slow, it usually happens pretty slow when you do it yourself. I do it a little faster in my clients, but once you start making contracts with yourself, keeping promises with yourself, empowering yourself, loving yourself, because a promise is sort of like an act of love to yourself. Like, do you love yourself enough to keep the promise? So it took me 2.5 years to quit alcohol. Cocaine took me about a year to quit the cocaine. It took me about 3 years to quit steroids. And you just sort of do it over time. But again, the stronger you become, because you're not injured, you're not poisoned, you're not poisoning yourself, the more able you are to say no to the repetitive content. Because don't forget, your poisons also affect brain function. If you're poisoned, it's proven you think short term. You will think 5, 10, and 15 minutes down the road. And if you're not poisoned, you think 5, 10, and 15 years down the road. So when you're poisoned, not only are you injured, but you have this inhibited or retarded brain function compared to when you're healthy. And again, this is all part and parcel, all documented research of psychological manipulation. The only science that's truly settled is the science of psychological manipulation. They can make you do absolutely anything. They'll make you wait in line and volunteer to inject poison into yourself. They'll trick you to do it to your own kids. They'll trick you to get a job instead of working at your own business. They'll trick you to waste time in front of the TV, eat poison, inject poison, ingest poison. This is very powerful stuff. And if you don't understand it, you'll fall for it, but you'll think it's normal. You'll think there's nothing you can do, and you'll think it's the best you can do. And that's sad because everybody can be their best, especially if they know this information.
So, you said something that was quite interesting because you said herd. So basically, it looks like if they just look at us as animals. And for people that listen to my show, know that I talk a lot about ancient hidden history, Anunnaki, and the Sumerian tablets and stuff. And when you go back in antiquity, the same mindset that was then is actually the same mindset now of the rulers, where Anunnaki gods like Enlil would just cull humans because he got sick and tired of them. And they literally refer to us as like animals and cattle. And like when they had in the Garden of Eden that they wanted to try to increase their workforce because, again, they created us just for a workforce, they would have specific times when the males would have sex with the females to impregnate the females. So even the same cycle of having everything in control just got transferred a few 100,000 years to 2024 and is the exact same thing. And then like when you look at words like human resources in companies, that's a classic example of just looking at humans as a resource. So you look at animals as a resource. You look at money as a resource. There's no personification really of the human being, like, you know, like human affairs or something like that is human resources, because it's just a matter of dealing with that resource, or we need to get rid of that resource, we just get another one. There's no sort of like empathy or love or caring from the rulers that rule this planet, or overlords. And it looks like if everything you're describing is exactly the same thing that is put into religion and cults. And in my humble opinion, I think a religion is a cult. So would you say then that my assertion that the same technology of brainwashing, repetition, having all these little cues and targeting the weak is the exact same thing that they do for cults and religion?
There's definitely, if you go to a church ceremony, and I've gone to them as well myself. I used to go to a Catholic school, which was, it had nothing to do with God, because the priests that were teachers there were very abusive to the boys. And there was a lot of sexual molestation there. But that doesn't cloud my judgment of, that was the people that were working there. So I always blame the people. But of course, when you understand mind control, there's a thing in mind control that has to do with height. What you'll notice at a lot of hypnotist shows is that the hypnotist will be standing, and the people, the mind control victims, or the people to be put under mind control, they're sitting. A lot of people don't even notice that. They just think it's to make the clients comfortable, the people comfortable. It's not. It's a hypnosis technique, because mind control is always based on a power differential, whether you want to admit the power differential or not. So me standing and you sitting, your nervous system knows automatically that you're at a disadvantage, because I can strike you really easy if you're sitting. How about if you're kneeling? When they ask you to kneel and pray, they got these knee benches in a lot of the churches I was going to. So not only am I sitting, I'm on a knee bench, I'm even lower. And then the preacher is up at least 3 or 4 steps, and sometimes he's up on a bigger podium or a bigger, like a stepped staircase. This is a guaranteed mind control modality. Your brain processes your height as, and if you're lower than someone else in terms of height, your nervous system will understand that you're physically at a disadvantage if a conflict would break out. And if that happens, it's just better to comply, obey, and be friends. So inside a lot of the religions, you'll see that you'll have this height differential, and that's definitely a mind control modality. And another mind control modality is light in the eyes. Like you'll see in a lot of hypnotist shows, they get the people to shut their eyes. Your nervous system is always assessing, am I at a disadvantage here? Am I vulnerable to attack here? Because if I am at a physical disadvantage, or I am vulnerable to attack, my most effective defense strategy is to comply. So a lot of times they'll tell you to close your eyes and pray. And this is where you become highly suggestible, where they're going to throw in, and the prayers are repetitive as well. And also when you're basically looking at the preacher's pulpit, a lot of times it will be purposely placed in front of a window so that the sun is shining into your eyes. Again, if you're blind, if your eyes are closed, if you can't see properly, it triggers a nervous system adaptation, a sort of shift in defense strategy to being more compliant and reflexively obedient. And of course, alcohol is used in a lot of the Christian and Catholic ceremonies. This is the blood of our Lord. Everybody come have a little bit of a sip. And of course, unleavened bread with the gluten, it causes sort of a damaging of the body. These are not healthy things to have. They're not healthy things to consume. So basically, you're getting put in the position as well as being a little weakened. But that doesn't negate the fact of the morality and the ethics of the original religious ideologies. They've been bastardized since their origins. I believe the origins of religion was basically morality and ethics would be the basis that sort of lost today. Just give me a second. Could you close the door? Thank you. Go ahead, Todd.
So now they've got you. They've done all these modalities to get you. How do they actually keep you in there? Just simple black and white repetition, or are there other little techniques that they use to keep you inside?
Well, basically, whether it's the Jonestown cult or basically becomes your identity. It becomes your herd. I mean, this is where you're going to congregate. This is where you're going to feel safety. They put repetitive rituals. Now, repetitive rituals come every Sunday, say the same prayers. Things that are repetitive rank as very safe and secure in the subconscious mind because they are predictable, and predictability about the future equates to safety. If you want to threaten a human's safety, make their future unpredictable like we have now. They're going to lock down, they're going to attack again, we have to get a jab, can you fly, can you not fly? It sends the human psyche spinning into outer space. But if you can give them something predictable to bite into, then it becomes sort of something that people are attracted to because it satisfies their basic safety and security requirements. These things, I'm not trying to equate religions to cults, but there are mind control modalities in both. And the more we understand it, the easier it is to assess if we're being manipulated or not.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So the technology then is pretty much the same, and I guess it depends on the control group that is pushing the narrative, whether it's for benevolent reasons or malevolent reasons, that you can have positive or negative outcomes, whether in a cult or a religion. Because like you rightly said before, you can positively brainwash yourself. So you can possibly have a positive cult in theory, where you inject things like meditation, doing exercise, eating organic food, reducing screen time. So in theory, you could actually have a positive cult doing the exact same technology, but for the advancement of human beings, no?
Absolutely. Anything that would be repetitive, that would increase your power inside any group, that would usually better your life. But you can have people get in sort of cults, even in gyms. I mean, if you change gyms, they'll get mad at you if you change the gym, if you wear the wrong clothing, if you're not in line with the social customs of the powerlifting routine. Do you use chalk? Do you not use chalk? So basically, every group has these limitations and these restrictions, but just naturally, because we're herd-based, we're pack animals. We like our routines, we like our rituals, we react to group pressure, we react to pressure of the herd, but that compares to nothing that's going on today with the weaponized psychology that's tricking people to wait in line, to literally euthanize themselves, to take themselves out, to hurt their kids, to sterilize their kids. So we got to make sure to understand there's a huge difference between basic human psychology and the group in charge taking advantage of that basic psychology and weaponizing it against us, because that's what's going on today. All the psychology that's weaponized against us is meant to disempower us financially, disempower us physically, disempower us spiritually, so that we're weak animals, so that weaker animals comply. And I like the fact that you compare it to these, these facts that you roll out all the time. And I wasn't nodding my head because I don't know anything about that. That's exactly what's going on. That's why they use the word herd immunity, another farming definition, and even the word pharmakia or pharmacy. The pharmacy, again, which pumps out poisons, this is a human farming supply store for the human farming operation. And people think it's there to make them healthy. It's an extension of ancient black magic rituals by which you poison the humans that you're farming to more easily control them. So I just want to make sure everybody knows I'm definitely in lockstep with what Todd says about the ancient past, because the people attacking us, they have their roots in the ancient past, and all the modalities to manage us here on the human farm. It's not new tech, it's old tech. And they're using this old tech against us, rebranding it as new, and we're in real trouble. Everything from, I mean, do you follow Billy Carson at all? That
Yeah, I
gentleman?
listen. I listen to him sometimes.
Yeah, he was talking about, I don't know if it was Enki or Enlil, had a crystal tablet by which he could watch anyone in the world
It was
from
Enlil.
anywhere, Enlil, anywhere at any time. Sound familiar? Again, old tech. We're not advancing, we're regressing, and they're only giving us little bits and pieces of the old tech. And again, they're really sharpening their skills in regards to mining the humans, getting the value out of us, getting the work energy out of us, and then we're doing the work to enslave ourselves. We're doing the work to change the society in terrible ways, and we're getting mind control and poisoned to do it. They're really good at it. We got to be really good at resisting them.
You made a distinction there with pharmacy and farm. I never made that connection before, but it totally made sense. Farm, pharmacy, farming cattle, farming humans. So it's just a drugstore to farm human cattle, you know?
That's all it is. And even in Europe, where I am right now, they don't fool around with the phonetics. They don't spell it PHARM. It's FARMCIA. It's a pharmacia.
Pharmacy,
This is,
yeah.
yeah, it's a pharmacy because, and they give you the prescription. Well, what's a script? It's
Yeah,
lines and,
spell.
well, script is a spell or lines in a movie, lines you're supposed to say when you're called on stage. Now, what better way to make sure you say your lines than to get the prescription? Pre means before. So before you say your lines on the stage, pre-script, they got to drug you so that you never question what you're being told to say by the TV, the media, the government, the mind control. And all these things are like a watch. There's 150 pieces in a watch. They all work in unison to accomplish one goal, which is to tell the time. Pharmacy is a part of the watch. The Netflix is part of the watch, a cog in the watch. Schooling is a cog in the watch. Your wine shop, your alcohol store, your marijuana store. They all work together and they don't care which one you pick. You want to be a coffee junkie? Great, they got you. You want to drink wine at night? You want to be wine mom? Great, they got you. You want to smoke marijuana? Great, they got you. They don't pick your poison, get your prescription, get your script, download your script from the TV, from the movies, from the TV shows. And we really got to get educated on this, because this is how the human people farm, as Max Egan says, this is a people farm. You live on a people farm.
So, I'm always very shocked and surprised and astounded. Like, how were they able to create a global pandemic that got pretty much the entire planet to wear face diapers, be in their house, stand 6 feet apart, inject themselves with poisons? Like, how can you break them how they actually were able to do that? Because for me, it just looks like just repetition, but it has to be more than just plain repetition than to get people to go along.
Right. Repetition is most of it, but basically fear was started it. So we had the one video of the man in China falling down flat on his face, but also breaking his fall before he fell. So he wasn't really falling unconscious, because I've fallen unconscious before. You don't break your own fall, you actually hit face first. So fear was the big one. Now it gets complicated for the average person, but not complicated for someone who does the research. There's something called dormant programming. A dormant programming is programming you introduce into the subconscious mind a long time before you trigger it and give it a matching repetition to bring it to the surface. So in 2011, there was a movie called Contagion with Lawrence Fishburne and Matt Damon and Gwyneth Paltrow. And in the movie, because this is how they work and this is how far they plan ahead, and planning 9 years ahead doesn't even cover it. This is just a short plan. So in the movie, we had a virus coming out of China. We had the airports closed. We had the gyms closed. We had asymptomatic spread. We had died suddenly. We had an experimental drug called rubivarin. Sanjay Gupta made an appearance in Contagion. We had everything that happened in 2020 happened in the movie Contagion. And so what it does, it's called dormant programming. So it goes in. Now, this wasn't the only movie that had viruses, killer viruses, vaccine saves the day, zombie-like implications. There was a purposeful production in Hollywood, which is controlled by this group, and there was at least 300 movies made in the 15 years prior, like 28 Days, with, I can't remember the guy's name, but we had World War Z with Brad Pitt. We had Contagion. We had Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. We had I Am Legend with Will Smith. Well, there's 300 of those movies. So what it did, it landed this dormant programming, and all the repetition was being counted. And then as soon as they launched the fear-based campaign in 2020, the subconscious goes, hey, 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 I know this script. So we go live. So the dormant program is just floating under the surface, just hanging out, hanging out. It's not going to be acted on. Then bang, it goes live. And the person's like, I know what to do. We got to wear a mask. So in Contagion with Lawrence Fishburne and Matt Damon, there was social distancing. How did social distancing? In a 2011 movie, masking, again, gyms closed, airports closed. They were burying bodies out in the open, and they did that as well on what's called Hart Island off New York City. They said the bodies were piling up and they had to bury them outside on Hart Island because they couldn't bury them fast enough. This was another lie, but it was also mimicked in the movie Contagion. And so the person starts to basically go into their subconscious library, the jukebox that is the subconscious, and start playing the relief or the solution, which is wait for a vaccine, to keep 6 feet apart, put the mask on, do what you're told. It's really deadly. And it was all a lie. There was nothing about COVID that was real. Even in Canada, there's a man, statistics, this world famous statistician analyzed all the world, all the government's own data. There was nothing to be afraid of. There was nothing that was killing people. The actual death rate when they locked us down went down. Hospital rates went down. Bed usage went down. There was no pandemic. The only time that hospital usage went up and the death went up is when they rolled out the shot. So what you had was a psychological priming of the population for decades in advance, which would make them react exactly like what they saw in the movies. And other dormant programming, fear can trigger, dormant programming to come to the surface too. Don't forget in I Am Legend with Will Smith, he loses his wife in the outbreak. He loses his daughter. They both get killed in the fiasco. He loses his dog. He loses his companions. All his work partners are dead or eaten by zombies or have become zombies. He lost everything. He lost his sanity. He started to date a mannequin at a DVD shop, if you remember correctly. So he lost everything. And like I said, at the end, he even lost his dog. One of the zombies bit his dog. His dog turned into a zombie. And Will Smith had to break his own dog's neck as the dog was turning into a zombie. You want to talk about insidious MK Ultra style programming that people think is entertainment? That's it right there. So when an outbreak happened just on the stage, not real, stage show, everybody's like, I don't want to lose my wife. This is what's going on in the subconscious mind. If you've watched I Am Legend, the entire movie, every millisecond, every megapixel is recorded in your subconscious. It's got an unlimited data recovery and retrieval capability. It will not forget. You forget, your conscious mind forgets, your subconscious never forgets. So it was all triggered by fear-based propaganda in 2020. Not only had they primed the population to have all this dormant programming, dormant instructions, dormant scripts already in their subconscious because of all this movie watching, they pre-primed the population as well to be injured animals so that they comply more. They vaccinated them to the nth degree, even before COVID. Teflon pans, mercury teeth fillings, cancer-causing Wi-Fi ripping from their cell phones that they put in their pockets or their bras. Everything's toxic, new car smell, plastics, microplastics. They made sure that the public was psychologically primed, chemically primed for the biggest wealth heist in recorded history, because that's really what this whole thing is about. It's a transfer of wealth, a transfer of power, where you'll never get your wealth back. So this is how it was done. Fear lowers IQ, changes brain function from the prefrontal cortex to the limbic system, from high IQ to low IQ, triggering of dormant programming. And don't forget, if you look at Joost Meerloo, Joost, Meerloo is Meerloo, he wrote the book Menticide and the Death of the Mind. He's a mind control expert. He said, if you want to train someone and mind control someone, it's just like training a horse, just like training a dog, get them in isolation. That's why they sent us home, so they could train us in isolation, because when we're in isolation, we're more fear-based. We're out of our routine. We're out of our tribe at work. We're out of our tribe at the gym. They wanted to make us feel as afraid and isolated as possible, because humans, their greatest fear is being alone. That's why in prison, your biggest punishment is going in the hole by yourself. Your biggest punishment isn't taking a shower with the rapists and the murderers. In prison, your biggest fear, humans' biggest fear, is going in the hole, going in isolation. They send us home to isolate us, increase the fear, and train us like circus animals. But where was the trainer? You know where the trainer was. The repetitive content getting fired out of the TV. And even if you watch Netflix to take a little break from the 24-hour fear porn that was on all the stations. You have Bill Gates had the Contagion movie rolling again. He had another movie, sort of a Bill Gates walking people through outbreaks and pandemics and things. Everything on Netflix was there to scare you about viruses that have never even been proven to exist. And that's how they trained you. They trained you like cattle, put you in isolation. And of course, this is why the gyms were closed, because that's our routine. Humans love routine. Routine means security and safety. Predictability is security and safety. They broke all our safety and security rituals, sent us home, programmed us through the TV, trained us like a dog, or a dog trainer, a horse trainer trains their animals. You can't train a dog when all the other dogs are around. You can't train a horse when all the other horses are around. You ask the trainer, they'll tell you it's impossible. You have to separate the animal to put the best control into them. And then once they're trained, it's hard to break. And that's what we're seeing today. You're allowed to say anything on social media right now, because once the training is done, it's really hard to break the training.
Well, you say that, but in the UK now, basically you are being taken to prison for up to 2 years for basically spreading disinformation against the government. And it is actually openly, they're saying it is rhetoric against the government or mainstream quotation marks information. So I don't think that we have as much freedom as we think. I think that the walls are closing in very, very quickly. And soon in all of the Western world, I think Australia, they're looking to bring in some sort of a hate speech bill or something like that as well. So it's moving at rapid pace. So the dormant sort of programming, as you explained it well, seems to definitely be coming to the surface now because people are just complying. And you had a podcast, I can't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was 117 or 187. Or maybe it was both, that you had talked about if you were jabbed, that you could detox the body. So I listened to the show twice to try to wrap my head around it. Great show as well. The snail venom and the snake venom, that's like next level. And they're actively like just procuring it as the information you dropped. And I wanted to ask a few questions in terms of that. So I have the list here of things that you had represented because you said basically you had all the supplements that you ever been mentioned, and you got things like astaxanthin, zinc, NAC, glutathione powder. So my question is, do you need to take all of these things together, or you can pull out some? Because for me, when I looked at it, the ones that if I were to do it, if I were jabbed, the ones that I would pull out would be like zinc and glutathione powder, vitamin C, magnesium, and then you finish it off with the coffee enema, and then vitamin D if you're in a country that has like low sunlight. So would you have to take all of those things, or you can take one or a combination of 2 or 3 or 4?
I would always do sunlight before any vitamin D supplementation. There's some controversy lately about vitamin D. And for vitamin C, don't take vitamin C tablets. You definitely want to take fresh citrus juice. And really, to be honest with you, I think if you were simply to follow the principles of Paul Chek in his book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, you would detox, I believe, to the best of your ability. So the more live your food is and the more organic your food is, the more power it has to clean the body. Eating less, right? I mean, sort of doing, I don't really suggest fasting too much, but if you were to eat a lot less, maybe have the same amount of meals, or maybe have 2 meals a day, make the meal smaller, you can really go a long way to repairing the body from the jab. Now, a lot of people don't even, still to this day, I haven't run across any scientist where I'm super confident they know exactly what's in there. Because what happens is when you get down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, it looks more like Star Wars versus Harry Potter versus The Matrix versus The Mummy. That's the four movies that come to mind. And the Mummy one is related to a lot of the work that you research. But when you look at what's in some of these people's blood and what some of these scientists are finding that's growing inside the bloodstream of these people, I think there's a good, there's a good bet to be placed that only ultra healthy, holistic living could break down what's going on. Because in reality, I think it's sort of a spiritual war between God and evil. And what's in that blood is evil. And if you want to cure evil, you better put in the healthiest, all the components, all the natural components, all the components that the Creator has provided here for us. Because I don't know if those supplements by themselves will do the trick, but I can understand that if you were to read that book by Paul Chek, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, I'm pretty sure you're going to be well ahead of the curve in trying to remove whatever that is from the bloodstreams.
Because the reason why I asked is that I think it's 187 podcast that you broke it down. You're saying in that podcast that there seems to be a payload, and this payload, if okay, let me phrase that. The people that have died like really quickly, the payload seemed to have been released into the body much faster. Either it was from not the jabs not being cold enough, because they were saying that in the podcast that there's like some coating that protects the payload to enter the body. And then either frequency or frequencies can trigger the payload. So my question is tailored for if a person is listening to this podcast now and they were jabbed and they have not had any issues yet, it could be that the payload simply hasn't been triggered or the coating hasn't dissolved. So yes, they can eat well, but when you use what supplements, then has your research shown you which supplements work the best, or is a combination, or you can pick any off the list? Because you had like a very extensive list of things to take. So anyone that's listening to this that say, okay, well, I understand what Jason is saying. So, okay, I can eat well. That's one thing I can do. What supplement or supplements would you say would be the best to take to speed up the detoxifying process of the body?
I know a lot of people will not like the answer, but some of these supplements, I believe, are getting sold to us in the same way that pharmaceuticals are getting sold to us. So I always want compounds that are more in line with nature. And I think that can detox better than supplements. But you might have to do something. It would be better to try and find, say, a herbal supplement, sort of a natural supplement with herbs in it that'll help support the liver and help support the kidney and even help support bowel movements. That I would recommend. So I don't have any of those listed in the podcast that you're talking about. See, this is important for people to understand too, is that coating that was around the payload, if the temperature wasn't kept when it was being delivered at the vaccine clinic, the coating could have broken down supposedly and made the injection inert. So that's important hope to give the people, that potentially whatever was dangerous inside of it has been made inert if they didn't deliver it at the proper temperature. If anybody has taken it, I would tell, look, really stay away, very far away from Wi-Fi or high heat exercise, because there's a lot of the people that have been passing away from standing positions. People, we've seen these videos, people are standing, rappers, musicians, we've seen reporters. Well, they're all wearing the wireless earpieces and they're using the wireless microphones. And supposedly the strategy of the ruling group is to use the towers, amplify the Wi-Fi, and trigger a lot more deaths and destruction in the same way that the microphone being held too close was potentially triggering a stroke in the reporter or heart attack in the reporter. So high heat, high energy. You see a lot. I think you've seen, Todd, a lot of the athletes, especially in soccer, were passing away. People that have a lot of heat production, it's almost like an energy source, and it can sort of trigger the payload. But the longer someone goes without a problem, the sort of clearer they are out of the danger zone. That's my impression from the research I've done. People that have got here so far, one more year, it's less likely to happen. There's also talk again that they're going to try and really ramp up the Wi-Fi signals to give us the real live show of the monkeypox. It won't be monkeypox, of course. It'll be a triggering of the payload that people injected years prior. I don't really know where it's going to go, but I do trust the human body to get rid of this stuff if it's given the right components. Eat organic food, drink clean water, watch your habits, dedicate to a healthy lifestyle. This is the most important period in human history to dedicate to a healthy lifestyle, and support the farmers in your local area. They're going to give you healthy food to help you survive. Do not count on the big box stores. They're poisoning the food before you get it. The big box stores are in on the con job. Be very careful. Grow your own food, find farmers in your local area, eat clean, and try to remove as much as of this junk as you can through healthy living principles.
Okay, so basically, from I was listening to that same episode, and you were saying that it appears that the payload has like a shelf life, and that the longer you go without having any side effects, the more likely it is that the body naturally passes it out, because of basically how the body works, and the potency would go down and down and down. And then, because we're like, what, 3 years since they rolled out the jabs. So if you've made it this far, do you think then that you have a good chance of making it another 3 years at least without anything, or that's just supposition?
A better chance than when you first got the shot. This is what I'm seeing. When the shot first rolled out, there was a guy died in my gym in a standing up position, 30 years old. He was just working out on the lat pull down, got up, started to walk toward his friends, blood ran out his nose. He was dead standing up and fell into another machine, dead on contact with the floor. And during the rollout, I know 20 people in my hometown that died of a heart attack within 6 months of taking their first shot, or their first or second shot, or their complete rounds of shots. So this is really important. I did see on the street that there was more people dying in and around the initial shot rollout than I'm seeing now. But I'm still seeing some problems, but there's less of it. This is not the time to be drinking, though. This is not the time to be eating pizza. This is not the time to be eating takeout, because these groups like Seagrams that are owned by the Brofmans, Walmart that is owned by, who owns the Walmart? Is not the
Walt family?
Waltons.
Walton or something,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Walton family. These people are in on the con. Your McDonald's, your Wendy's, it was poisonous before, absolutely, but it's way more toxic now. This is not the time to be going to Starbucks simply because it's owned by Bill Gates. Do not engage with these big corporate stores that are trying to give you food. This is a farming operation. That's not healthy feed. It's the same. This is toxic that will take you out any way they can. And for someone to say, oh, they'd lie about COVID, but they never lie about the coffee, or they'd lied about COVID, but they would never lie about my Wendy's, pull your head out of your derriere. You're under attack. This is a farming operation. And listen to a lot of Todd's videos. This is a cycle. This is an old cycle. This is not their first rodeo. This is not their first harvest of the human wealth. Do not eat the poisoned food. It's, this is this is what they do. Like when we hunt for deers in Canada, we put out the corn, and when the deer comes for the free corn, we blow a hole through it and take it home. This is what they're doing with you. Make sure you get your own healthy food, free of their toxins, free of their chemicals, free of their poisons. Your life depends on it. This is the time to pay attention.
So a question, Jason, do you think then that, okay, so I think that a massive amount of people woke up as a consequence of the pandemic. So do you think then that they can be as successful if they were to try it today or tomorrow than they were in 2020? Or do you think from traveling the world, because you travel a lot, you talk to a lot of people, do you think there will be much more pushback, or will we simply just acquiesce like we did and let them go into our derriere again like before?
So you mean in relation to if they launch, I mean, they are launching the next
Yeah.
PSYOP right now, how hard will it bite?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I know human psychology. I'm also biased. I want people to push back and wake up and decline and not comply, but you never know, because as soon as you trigger fear, if they have some kind of weaponry with the Wi-Fi towers, and it might react with existing components inside the bloodstream of people that have taken any vaccine. I don't think any vaccine's off the table here for different components. I don't think they only started experimenting with these sci-fi components in 2020. I think they were in a lot of the shots for a lot longer than we would believe. I think they're in the food supply, especially things like Coke and Pepsi and the fast food joints. I don't know the full spectrum of their weaponry. I'm hoping people don't comply. And the healthier someone is, the stronger they are. That's why I teach the 5 pillars of strength inside all my programs. I teach physical strength, financial strength, spiritual, emotional, and intellectual. And I'm just like, if you're just starting and you don't know what to do, you feel hopeless, you're directionless, don't feel like that. Start with your health, because if you're stronger physically, you're stronger mentally, and you will give your no this time. You might have given your yes on the last PSYOP, but the stronger you are, the more likely you are to give your no. And this is going to be for all the marbles. This one's going to be for all the marbles. Yeah, they're throwing people in jail for trying to have repetitive content that's truthful. They're trying to jail people who tell the truth, and that sends a clear signal to the subconscious. Lie your way to safety. Keep lying. So we really have our backs up against the wall here as a society, where I tell people too, like, yeah, you could take a knee to tyranny right now. You could lie your way to safety, stop posting stuff on Facebook or social media, and comply with all this stuff. But when you take a knee to tyranny, usually the next thing you see in front of you is your severed head on the ground and the blood running from your neck. That's usually the next thing you see when you try to comply with a tyrant, because they have no intention of leaving anybody here unscathed. Everybody's going to be put to the shackles if they don't resist.
I agree. And one of the things that I say on my platform and in all of the, when I'm a guest on podcasts, is that I put a lot of the emphasis on men, because men, we are stronger than women. We have different role from women, and it's our job to protect and provide security to our family, our neighborhoods, our country, and our planet. And it is us men that need to become strong. It is us men that need to get into shape, work on ourselves, using the 5 pillars of strength that you described. I like that. I never call it that, but I use the same terms, because I think that strong men create good times and weak men create hard times. And I think that because men have become very weak and become very feminine, it has really destabilized our society, our culture, and our planet. And I think that we need men to step up, brave men to step up and say no. And some of us may have to be willing to die for our beliefs, but I think it's better to die on your feet than to die on your knees, because at the end of the day, you die anyway. And if you don't stand up for something, you will probably believe in everything and take everything. So, Jason, I wanted to say thanks for coming on to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. And please tell the people where they can find you if they wanted to get some one-on-one coaching with you. What does that look like? And tell us any upcoming events that you have that people can follow you, etc., etc.
Well, yeah, I'm going to the Tokyo Parliament September 26th to speak on mind control. And I do have a coaching certification. I only interact with the public a couple times a year. So I have an overcoming self-sabotage coaching certification starting October 27th. You can learn about all the stuff that I do for free. I'll give out tons of information in my Christoff report, which is a newsletter I put out about 4 times a week. It's uncensored. It's free. There's no cost for it, but you do have to be on the private email list. So email me at info@jchristoff.com, single initial J, Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. So info@jchristoff.com will get you on my private list, and you'll learn a lot of things that's censored, a lot of things that are hidden, a lot of positive stories about people changing their lives, agendas of the ruling group that you might want to sidestep, how to survive their attacks. And it's a good support system, because when they did attack in 2020, people were very active with each other, wanting to find the support, wanting to find the group, wanting to find the herd. And we had a herd of like minds that were, locked down at home and going through the Canadian winter, and we were sharing modalities about how to cope and how to strategize to live better lives. And a lot of us moved away. We were strategizing. Like I moved to Mexico. You know that. I got out of Canada, sold my businesses, left the Canadian tyranny behind. And we share how that's done. What does it take to get there? Whatever we got to do to survive, it's going to be in a group like this. So it's very important. It's not just about me getting your email. It could be when the stock market's going to crash, when gold's going to crash, when to buy gold. Should you buy crypto? What's the cryptos to buy if you're going to do it? When should you buy? Because there's a big crash coming. I predict there's a crash coming in and around the elections, and I'm trying to fine tune the date as I'm going, and I share that with the group. So I'm going to sell all my stocks, all my gold stocks. I'm going to sell all my crypto before the big crash. I'm going to stockpile cash, and then I'm going to jump back in again. I'm going to try and time the bottom of that crash. And this is why the ruling group does it, to maximize their power. And we as individuals should do it as well. If it's being planned to maximize our power, except we're going to use our power to make the world better when we come out of the crash. And it's time to even the playing field. And you can get this kind of information on the Christoff report.
Yes, I concur with everything you said, because I am on the Christoff report, and you have some fair information. And, I think that we have to start to get to know each other better. We need to start to become friends, all those like-minded people, because we have to create a network and a support system, because what's coming is going to be tremendous. I do agree with you as well that I think a financial crisis is coming. I actually put it around the time of the election as well, because regardless on who gets in, it doesn't really matter. There will be destabilization. So people that think that Trump is going to save the world, I think they'll be very much sad when they see that that's not going to happen. And the people that think that the other party, Kamala Harris, will save the world, I think they'll be very much sad as well, because there will be right wing, left wing is all the same bird. So we need to go after the bird and not the wings, because the wings are just puppet of the bird. So Thank you, Jason, for coming on to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. And for those that are regular listeners, you know that I am an online fitness trainer. I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you want to get into the best shape of your life, because at the end of the day, one of the tenets of strength is to have a physically strong body, because this will also help improve your mindset, and it will also help you grow spiritually, because as you put more energy into the body and you improve your mindset, you will start to connect with your spirit, because the spirit dwells in a clean body. The body is the temple of God. So if information like this resonates with you, all the stuff like this and I talk about, and I coach my clients on mindset as well, and how to improve their spirituality. And if you're on a spiritual journey and you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you would like to overcome some fears and traumas, I can also help you with that by helping you to get some magic mushrooms. So if that is something that you're interested in, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246, or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. And we have a merch store as well, so you can find me on Amazon, Todd and Me. Links will be in the description of this podcast, as well as all the links for Jason for his course, and any other handles that he may have that you can contact him. And just want to say thanks everyone for listening to the Conscious Man 7. We have some more cool and interesting guests coming, and keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Hit me up at my Instagram at Adriano_246, or Todd Cave on Facebook. Hit up Jason if you're interested in his coaching. All the links will be in the description. Speak to you soon. Ciao and namaste.